So the other day, I once again went to Disneyland. Holy cow. Basically, if you don't know, I've made a bunch of other videos that are kind of like in this little trilogy of this graduation-esque thing. You don't have to watch those. If you want to, cool, but you don't have to. Basically, what happened is for my graduation, my high school graduation, my mom and my parents bought me tickets to Disneyland. It was cheaper if they bought me like a 3-day pass thing. So I've gone to Disneyland a lot recently. I feel so like selfish and rich and privileged to say this, but I'm not a big fan of Disneyland because I've been there so much. I used to be an annual pass holder with my family, and my brother and sister love Disneyland. So we went all the time, and I'm kind of like, man, roller coasters are cool and all, but they aren't all that. But it is a different experience when you go with your friends. Problem is, these past like 3-4 times we've gone to Disneyland, I've gone with my friends. Which, don't get me wrong, it's fun to go with them, but we can have fun literally doing anything. But this time was different. You see, one of my cousins actually also got the tickets. So we went at the same time. You know, he's one of my cousins that I'm really close with. We went to the same school, but this time it was different. This was going to be a end of summer, beginning of college trip to Disneyland. And I made one request because I went to Disneyland for grad night for high school, and I went 2 other times, all really close to each other. Just Disneyland. So I asked one thing. I was like, hey, can we go to California Adventure at least this time? And, you know, my parents were like, yeah, sure. So we all went to California Adventure. This time, though, my sister's really good friend, and I guess my really good friend, I don't know. We haven't talked in a while. She's kind of like a sister to me. Like I was saying, she was going. And usually I bring a friend. You know, usually I bring like one of my best friends with me, and that's all great. But the difference is she decided to bring her best friend. So I was kind of like, you know what? I'll just let it be about them this time. Like as cool as it would be to bring my friend with me, I've already brought him before. That's what I want to do, and I was just gonna hang out with my cousin and just do what they want to do. Because like Disneyland and California Adventure, it's not really all my thing. We went on a lot of rides and had terrible time management skills, and man, it was interesting. But the thing is, when we get there, first thing that happens is my sister's best friend, such my friend, such whatever, who cares, wants coffee. Because like most high school girls, she's addicted to coffee. Okay, this is one of many times we'll be getting coffee today, and that's just how it starts. See, I got my wisdom teeth pulled the other day, and I was just like, okay, I can kind of eat. So we go to the Starbucks in California Adventure, and I'm like, I can't really eat any of this. I'm going to Disneyland, but I'll try my best. So I get like a not egg McMuffin. It's like a sausage sandwich, whatever they called it at Disney Starbucks, and I like spent the next like 20 minutes just eating it in like little tiny bites. And while my sister and her friend got like all these like Starbucks coffee, 5 shots of espresso, yada yada yada. That's probably an understatement. It was probably more. But did I get a drink? No, I just got the sausage sandwich. Dang, I didn't get a drink. Good job, Sean. And we decided to walk to our first ride. So the thing is, we're walking, and I don't know what ride we want to go on. Like I said, I was going to let them take the lead if they ever need to know where something is, because I know where everything is. So does my sister, by the way. They can just ask me. We passed Soaring Over California or Soaring Over the World or whatever it's called. And I'm like, yo, you guys want to go on this ride? I don't really like that ride all too much, but they do. And they're like, look, the line's too long. I'm like, okay, where do we end up next? That's so ironic. Incredicoaster, aka California Screamin', aka like the ride that has like super long lines. I'm like, and I'm laughing about this because I'm sitting there. I'm like, so I just want to point out, I don't mind going on this ride first, even though you guys have like never been on it. And like my sister's like scared. She's like, oh, is it gonna be bad? I'm like, Jillian, you want to go on this ride first. If this goes bad, it's going to ruin your entire day. She's like, yeah, I want to go on it though. I'm like, okay. But I also want to point out, I asked if you want to go on Soaring Over the World, and your response was not right now, or maybe later. It was, let's not go because the line is too long. Then 2 minutes later, we walk in the Incredicoaster line. Okay, I don't know if you've ever been to California Adventure, but that line is long. So we sat there, and I think we played sticks. Interesting fact about me, I've never lost a game of sticks in my life, and I like to play it. Problem is, people won't play me anymore because I always win. Why? I don't know. I'm not that good at math, but I'm good at math and sticks. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. We go on the ride. I've actually never been on Incredicoaster, but I was kind of just sitting there, and I was like, YOLO. I guess I wasn't really thinking because it's got some crazy drops and all that stuff, but my sister was really worried about it. I'm like, she doesn't need me being worried about it. So I was kind of sitting there. I was like, yeah, no, it's going to be fine. Like people go on this all the time. I'll be right there. So the way Incredicoaster works is it's groups of 2. My cousin that went with us didn't want to go on this ride because he's not a big fan of roller coasters, okay? I'll tell you that. So he opted out. Thankfully, though, I decided to sit alone because obviously, like, they're best friends. They want to sit next to each other. Thankfully, I sat in a seat that didn't have another seat next to it. And Incredicoaster, I was like, oh, this this is dope because I don't want to sit next to like someone who's probably gonna scream in my ear. Speaking of screaming in my ear, we go on the ride and I'm sitting there, I'm like, I'm just gonna do this whole ride straight face. Let's do this. YOLO. And we go on the ride and they are so loud. They're right behind me. My sister and her amigo, like, bro, it was so, they were just screaming their heads off. And I'm just sitting there, I'm like, wow, this is kind of hurting my ears. But it was crazy, okay? People talk about like, oh, they say all this stuff in the ride. I'm like, I could not hear anything over the screaming. I'm not gonna lie. But it was fun. Would I go in again? Sure. Would I choose to go in again? No. But if I'm with a bunch of friends or my family's like, yo, let's go on this ride, I'm gonna be like, okay, sure. Yeah, but we go on a few other rides. We basically go on like every ride there. We don't go on Goofy Sky School though, because it was like we chose not to go on it earlier, and when we tried to go on it, it closed down. So that was great. But you know, we went on like flying musical swings. We went on the rocket ride. We went on Ariel. We went on Guardians of the Galaxy, aka Tower of Terror. We went over Soaring Over the World / Soaring Over California. We went on like every single ride there. Cars Land, and it was honestly a lot of fun. We stayed all day, even though I had like okay, I started college the day before, so it was really funny because I'm like, wow, I start my first day of college and the first thing I do is go to an amusement park. Great times, am I right? We decided to go to lunch at this like Red Bull place, which, like I said, I just got my wisdom teeth removed and I can barely eat food, so I got like this Red Bull with macaroni and cheese inside. I was like, wow, that was actually really good. It was meta, okay? And we eat, we share a bunch of crazy stories that I'm not gonna share with you guys because it's crazy stuff. And one of the big rides was Guardians of the Galaxy. Okay, I've been on it before. Basically, when the ride first came out, my family went to Disneyland, and my brother's like, oh, he's a big fan of Marvel. He's like, I want to go on this ride. And I'm like, dude, you're crazy. That's Tower of Terror. And he's like, good luck. And we're like, yeah, we're not going on it. And he's kind of sitting there. I still remember this. He's like, he turns around and looks at us. He's like, I have to go on it alone. And I'm sitting here. I'm like, man, it's Charmander Community Day in Pokemon Go. I just want to catch my Charmander. I hate myself, and I go on the ride with him. See, here's the thing. I used to think I was invincible when I was a kid. I'm not gonna lie. I was the guy when we're jumping on the trampoline who would like move all the insects off. That is until two things happened. One, I got stung by a bee. The other one was when I went to Scandia. I don't know if you know what that is. It's like an amusement park that's like, it got shut down because like it didn't follow like safety regulations. I went on this one ride that, you know, you sit on this little thing and it goes up on the right, then goes down, and then up on the left and goes down. Like, I don't know if that's a good picture for you guys. But yeah, that is when I discovered drops. That in Splash Mountain, and that was not very fun. So Tower of Terror, Guardians of the Galaxy, we decided to go on that. We actually went on it twice because we're dumb. I found this little trick though. The drops don't really bother me that much, but I did realize that the way Tower of Terror works, little tip for any of you guys who hate drops, when you're sitting in your seat and you put the seatbelt on, if you use your legs to lift yourself up so your butt is not touching the seat, you will not feel the drop. At least that works for me. Maybe it actually doesn't work at all, and I'm just tricking myself and I actually don't feel the drop at all. Who knows? I don't. But we go on a lot of different rides, and I think one of my favorite parts was after we went on the Radiator Springs ride, after we went on the Cars ride, we were like looking in the gift shop while my sister's friend is looking for a gift for her brother. Shout out to you. You might be watching this video. I don't know. He's my boy. I beat him up with a lightsaber every once in a while. We're kind of like sort of neighbors, like we live in the same neighborhood. But anyway, she was looking for a birthday gift for him. I brought this Jello because once again, I can't eat, so I brought Jello, and I never knew this until that day. Jello actually melts. It's not something I ever really thought about. That could just be being like an imbecile. It could be me being dumb. But I'm sitting there, I'm like, wow, Jello melts. So I have these cups of liquid Jello, and I'm like, man, I'm thirsty. I could buy like a $12 drink here at California Adventure, or I could just try drinking one of these. So I did, and it actually wasn't that bad. It actually tastes like some of the drinks from Galaxy's Edge. If it's any consolation, it was orange Jello. Not that bad. But I was making a stupid joke because we were all in a gift shop, and I was with my cousin, and then I was like, hey, Jillian. She turns around and I like put a cup on my cousin's head. I'm like, hey, it's Cuphead. Yeah? And I take the cup off like right away, and it was like the whole joke. And my cousin's just standing there, and then all of a sudden he turns to me. He's like, I'm gonna see how long I can keep this on my head. I'm like, what? It's like the Jello cup you put on my head. I'm gonna see how long I can keep it there. And you know, any rational human being or even nice person would probably go, oh, there's no Jello cup on your head. But me, I just thought for a second, I was like, I want to see how long this goes. So we eventually walk out of the gift shop, and he's like walking real slow, and he's like going down the street, and I'm walking walking with my sister's friend, and we're walking, and my sister's in front, like sending a video message to like our family, something like that. She's doing something, and my cousin, he's a little bit in front of us, okay, and he's still walking weird. And then all of a sudden, my sister's friend comes over to me, and she's like, "Hey, what is he doing?" And I'm like, I pull a little smirk. I'm like, "He thinks that there's a cup on his head." And she looks at me, and she's like, "What?" And I was like, "I put a Jello cup on his head earlier, and he thinks he's still there." And right after I say that, he turns around, and he kind of like all slowly, and he looks. He's like, you know, because he thinks the cup's on his head. And we just burst out laughing. And I give him thumbs up, like, "Man, you're doing great," you know. And he eventually goes up to Jillian, and I don't know what they were talking about, but I was like, I'm gonna see how long this lasts. And then all of a sudden, I see my cousin pats his head, and he just turns around, and he looks at me. He's like, he was so mad. Obviously, he wasn't legitimately mad, but he was really disappointed because I was like, "Were you proud of yourself?" He's like, "I was so proud." And it was hilarious. It lasted for like a good 5 minutes. Highlighted the whole trip. Speaking of highlight, it was actually when we went to this wilderness explorer thing in California Adventure. It's like this whole little kid thing where there's obstacle courses and stuff. We were too tall to do most of the stuff, but there was cool bridges there, okay? And what do you think I mean by cool bridges? I mean, there's bridges that, like, if you were an adult and you walk on them, they go like flying. Like, they just like move around so much. And if you abuse that, you can ruin Children's Day. And if you know anything about me, I have a problem where I like to abuse small children. Not like literally. I don't want to go to jail, but I get an odd satisfaction out of doing it. One time there was this kid who's walking past me. I was like moving the bridge around because just my friends and I on the bridge. And my sister's friend actually has a video of me like wobbling the bridge. The kid gets on, I stop, and then I turn around and look at him when he passes me, and I look back at the camera, and then I look back at the kid because I sitting there. My inner monologue was like, "I'd end this kid's whole career right now by one little twitch of my leg." I didn't do it because another kid went on, and I was like, not that kid. But it was a lot of fun. The other thing that we did was we were planning on eating dinner at a reasonable hour because, we need to eat. But the thing is, that didn't happen. You want to know why? Because my friends are terrible at time management. I'm like, "We need to eat." And they're like, "Nah, let's go on this ride. Let's go on Grizzly River Run. That's what we want to do because it's really hot outside, and that's a water ride." But the thing is, it's 8 o'clock at night, and we're going on this ride. It's pitch black outside. It's reasonably cold, not like super cold, but cold enough for us to be like, let's not get water on us. And we decided to go on the ride, and we were menaces. Okay, my friends were screaming at the top of their lungs, and when you go on that ride, it's not just your group. You're like with a few other people, so these people are looking at us like wackos, and it was rough. I got absolutely soaked, which I thought was hilarious because I did not care. I could not care less because like we got splashed with a little bit of water at the beginning, and everyone starts screaming, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, wow, group of people decides to go on the water ride, and then surprised when they get splashed. Whoa, that's crazy. Honestly, it was a lot of fun. It was a good like memory before school started up again. And we ended up getting out of there at like 11 o'clock because we went on Tower of Terror, aka Guardians, like again. And we went to get Carl's Jr. for dinner because my cousin has a weird obsession with Carl's Jr. for some reason. I remember I was talking to him, and I was like, "What's your favorite restaurant?" He's like, "Jack in the Box." I'm like, "What?" I just exposed him. But like, bro, we carpooled there, and he was in the car, and he's like, "I had Carl's Jr. this morning." I'm like, "For breakfast?" He's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Why?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's good." I was like, "Okay." And then we had Carl's Jr. for dinner. So, because we're sitting there like, "What should we get for dinner?" He's like, "Carl's Jr." I'm like, "No." And then his mom's also in the car because we didn't want to pay for parking, so we had our parents pick us up. And she's like, "Let's go to Carl's Jr., guys." I'm like, but it was fine. I shouldn't be even picking where we're eating because I could barely eat most things. So I got chicken stars from Carl's Jr., which was a throwback. So much nostalgia, but it was actually a good trip. We saw a little bit of World of Color. We kind of missed it because we were going on Grizzly River Run, and then we were sprinting over to Guardians. It was a whole thing, but it was a lot of fun. Jello Story is still my favorite. The best ride, I say, was the Wilderness Exploring Training. I got to torment a bunch of little kids, and I feel bad, but it was still a lot of fun. And yeah, that is hopefully the last time I'll go to Disneyland or California Adventure I hope it's a while. I do. But yeah, if you guys enjoy, you know what to do. Peace out. Peaches, 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 I love you. Oh,